This is a good group. We're already really good at meditating on the second week. Let's see how many are here.
There is 1 host and 12 participants in this conference.
Okay, 12 of you on the phone and 6 of us here. That's a good group. That was a good meditation. I hope many of you were feeling that sense of well-beingness that was here, is here. Last week we talked about God. Well, the name of the class, Only God Is the same statement as all there is consciousness, is the same statement as there's nothing but spirit, everything is spirit. And we talked about that for a few minutes, and I know a couple of people have gone back and listened to it a few times on the website and heard more than they did on the first hearing. So I'm going to pick up right there for maybe 10 or 15 minutes and expand on that and bring some more understanding of the nature of God to us. The purpose of understanding the nature of God is not to gain an intellectual understanding. This is an intellectual understanding of the nature of God will buy you absolutely nothing except perhaps a pointer in the right direction. The purpose of talking about the nature of God is that hopefully, if you will not try to understand it and not try to figure it out, but let it in, hopefully there will arise in you a bit of the experience of the nature of God, and that's where the peace is that we're all seeking. So all there is consciousness, and this week I want to talk about the fact that God is expressed, that consciousness is expressed, that there is an expression, that all of consciousness is expressed. And the reason we know that's true is if you open your eyes, you're looking at it. That is the expression of consciousness, of God, of spirit. Consciousness is expressed in what Joel calls mind, and Meg Johnson also called it mind. And we have to be careful about that word mind, because Joel uses mind to mean both mind and intellect. And we also use it to refer to dreams and memory and things like that. So let's be careful about that. When I say mind, I'm going to try to only use it to refer to that faculty of consciousness with which it expresses itself. God is expressed in mind and through mind. And we'll talk a good bit about mind, I think, in another class in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. But there's one other thing that is important to understand about mind. Space and time, this space we're looking at, this time we're experiencing, space and time are in mind. They're in the faculty of consciousness called mind. And I will tell you up front that what that really means is inconceivable to us who are functioning in mind. But God is outside of mind, and God is outside of space, and God is outside of time. Space and time are within what I call mind, and that's a faculty of the consciousness which God is. It's the faculty with which the consciousness that God is expresses itself. And I can give... We can't possibly imagine or conceive of what it means for there to be no space or no time. But I can give some validity to it. First of all, there's a guy named Stephen Hawking, who's a British cosmologist, who wrote the book The Brief History of Time, who talks about, what is, essentially, and what he's really talking about is God, and he and all the cosmologists talk about the Big Bang. And they acknowledge that the Big Bang was when creation happened. Let's call it Genesis, if you like. When creation happened, the creation of the universe happened. And at that point, time began. And at that point, space began. So the very advanced physicists also agree that there was a priorness to space and time, although we don't have any language even for it, because how can we say before time, since before is a time word? But nonetheless, God is expressed, consciousness is expressed in mind. Another word for mind, by the way, is awareness. What you're aware of is the expression. What we're aware of is the expression, and the expression of God is what we're aware of. And I will give you one other indication of that, I'm trying to lend validity with it so that we don't sit here and stew about whether there's space or time or not. If you did the reread of Dream On, it's talked at some length about in there. When we dream at night, we sometimes have a dream that appears to go on for minutes or hours even. And we're in a five-dimensional space, or three-dimensional space in that dream, and we're having our five-sense experience. And it's lasting over a period of perhaps several minutes or an hour. And if somebody had EKG on your brain and was measuring it, they would discover that the actual duration of the dream, the elapsed time in our time of the dream, was like 1 second or 2 seconds. Dreams don't last more than 1 or 2 seconds, in spite of the fact that the experience within the dream is often of considerably longer. So in our dreams every night, our subconscious does in fact create space and time in order to express itself. And there's an exact parallel. That's what Dream On is all about. There's an exact parallel between our subconscious mind expressing itself in dreams. And the parallel is with consciousness itself, the consciousness, capital C consciousness, expressing itself in space and time in our awareness. So we have God is to awareness, our awareness, as our subconsciousness is to the dream, or the us in the dream. When we dream, an entire universe worth of space appears, but our head doesn't swell up to include the entire universe or to include the room we're in or anything. Space and time are clearly, when we look at dreams, a creation of the awareness that we're having of the dream. So I'm going to let that sit there, but if you want to spend more time back in Dream On, we talk about that a lot. That's what the whole point about Dream On is, that it allows us, by looking at our dreams, to get a glimpse of the parallel relationship between consciousness itself, God itself, and this experience we're having. So God is outside of space and time, and that's what we mean when we say God is infinite and God is eternal. Those infinite doesn't really mean very large spaciously. It means outside of space, beyond space. And eternal doesn't mean a very long duration. Eternal means not in time, you know. It means, well, eternal. It means exactly that. Not a very long time. It means outside of time, and the infinite that God is means outside of space. And yet we have an experience of them that we call here and now. And you know, we are always eternally here, and we are always in now. Now it's still now. Now it's still here. If I get up and go outside, I'll still be here. I will still be here. Not in this location that you're looking at that I'm in now, but to me, I will still be here, and I will still be in now. And you'll notice that that doesn't change, that my here-ness and my now-ness don't change. That's the truth of me, the consciousness, the experiencer, the one who's aware. So you can get a glimpse of eternal and infinite by looking at that. Robert Adams once asked me what my experience was like when I was driving along the freeway. If I'm driving down the freeway, one of two things is happening. Either the freeway signs are charging towards me and going past me, or I have the experience of sitting in my car, charging down the freeway, past the freeway exit and the freeway signs. And in one sense, I'm sitting here, well, in the material sense, in the sense of in which space and time are real to us. Here I am in my car charging down the freeway, and there's cars coming at me, and there's cars passing me, and freeway signs are buzzing past me, and that's my experience that I'm moving through space over a period of time, getting somewhere. But an equally valid position that I can take by choice is that I am here in this car, stationary, sitting here in the car, and the world, the freeway, is coming at me and disappearing behind me, and I continue to just sit here in my car, having the experience of being here now in my car as the freeway goes past me and the signs go past me and the hand on my watch moves around, and still I'm sitting here and now. And that's the sense I have when I'm in spirit rather than when I'm in my physical body. And so there's, to give you a bit more of a feel for this. And I really hope we're getting a feel rather than trying to figure this out. So, God is eternal and God is infinite. And I'm going to just hit 5 or 6 things that Joel talks about, always about the nature of God, and then we'll get off of this whole thing and start talking about what's going on in our lives. But we always use the 3 omnis when we talk about God. God is omnipresent. And that means that God is always everywhere. And since there's nothing but God, that must be true. If all there is consciousness, then wherever we are, there's God. There's nothing but God. So God is omnipresent. God is at every point in space and at every point in time. And again, this is inconceivable, but you can sort of see it in your dream. Your subconsciousness is expressed as the dream and as everything in the dream, and there is no point in your dream that is not within the dream itself, within the expression of the subconsciousness, just as there is no point here that is not within the expression of God. So God is certainly omnipresent, and God is omniscient. Omniscient means all-knowing. God knows everything, and this is sort of the easy grasp of it is that since God is everything, clearly God knows about everything, whatever knows means, So there's the other sense of omniscience is, like infinite wisdom, and that one's harder to get a hold of. But since God is everything, then all knowledge is clearly a part of God, a part of God being, and I guess we can say the same thing. Just as our subconscious is aware of everything in our dream, is everything in our dream, and is aware of everything in our dream, perhaps through the viewpoint of ourselves who are in our dream. And the third one that Joel always talks about is omnipotent, and he does that means God is the only power, and then he does a thing about one power, no power, and what he's really trying to say is that there is no power that is not God. The important thing for us to get, who are afraid of diseases and flu and terrorists and atomic bombs and diseases and all that sort of stuff, the important thing to get there is that if all there is God, then there are no powers other than God that can perpetrate anything on us, let alone negative afflictions. And that will become perhaps a little clearer and a little more useful when I introduce my fourth omni, which came to me a few weeks ago. God is omniactive. Since all there is God, every activity must be God. And the great peace in knowing that all of that every activity is God comes from the fact that God is outside of time, and so God is itself not active, because activity requires time. There is no activity in God. There is only activity in our sense of God within this time-space bubble that we're experiencing our awareness in. Just as for the me and the dream, there's an hour of experience going on, but in fact the dream was just an expression of subconsciousness in no time. The great point, and one that Paul Gorman really has dealt with right from the first class he ever did and goes on with continuously, is God is finished. God is complete. God is not evolving. God is not changing. God is not growing. God is not doing anything at all. God is complete. God is outside of time, so it can't not be complete. There's no time for it to, in God's experience, which is a misexpression since the experience that God is having is in time, but God is done, finished, fulfilled, complete, and I'm going to add to that harmonious. We'll get to this other thing, blissful. God is blissful. But the sense of activity, the reason for space and time is that you can't experience unless there's duration and objectification. There has to be time in which to experience, and there has to be space in which to experience things. So the reason there's space and time is that that's an integral part of experiencing. And what we see as activity, we see God's unfoldment as activity because we're in time. But if God is complete and finished and done, and I'm going to say for now, and we'll perhaps come back to it a little bit, if God is harmony or bliss now, then that is our true nature, since we're expressions of God. So our true nature right now is as expressions of God, as beings of God, is harmony and fulfillment and completeness and finishedness, and that is not our experience at the moment, but that is our true nature, because that's the nature of God, and God is expressed as us. All of God is expressed as us. Now, if I wanted to express the idea of an oak tree, I would have to express, if I wanted to completely express the idea of oak tree, I would have to express the idea of acorn, and I would have to express the idea of sprout and shoot and sapling and tree and branch and blossom and leaves and new acorns. I would have to express all of these things if I wanted to express oak. And that's what this whole thing is about, is that we individually are completely expressed, and that includes our expression at all levels of awareness. Oak trees start as acorns, people start as babies, the universe started as a big bang. Everything starts at the simplest form, and in our experience of it, becomes expressed more and more in detail. More of the harmony appears, more of the detail appears. We turn from savages into rational creatures, into civilized beach creatures, into creatures that can experience arts and music, into creatures that develop some spiritual consciousness, into creatures who finally realize that they are God. And all of that is levels of consciousness of the expression of each one of us human being type individuals. And the activity of God, the omni-activity, the only activity that is happening ever is the revelation of more of God individually to itself individually. So my experience is going from ignorance to wiser and more harmonious and developing spiritually and growing spiritually and eventually arriving at a point of bliss and understanding and oneness with God. That experience is taking place in time, in my experience in time and experience are integral parts of each other. So in my experience of myself in time, this development from acorn to oak tree is experienced, and the unfolding of that is the activity of God. All God is doing is expressing itself, all individual expressions of itself in all its levels of consciousness, leading towards the expression of itself as fulfilled in that particular aspect, in that particular individualization. And this is where the great sense of peace comes from, although probably not obvious yet, but if God is me, and God is already completely fulfilled as me, although the level of me I'm aware of right now is not that level of awareness, but if God is already completely fulfilled and harmonious and blissful as me, and what's happening, and the only thing that's happening in the universe, is God is revealing more of me to me, revealing me from acorn to shoot to sprout to trunk to branches to leaves. God is revealing more of itself as me to me and through me. Then everything's working perfectly. If that's in fact the only activity, and that is in fact the only activity, that's what omni-activity is. Omni-activity is the activity of God revealing itself to itself through itself, because there's nothing other than God, so there can't be any other activity, there can't be any other power, there can't be anything else. And as we ponder this and go back over this and think on it and take it inside the meditation and ponder it and deeper, as this gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into our consciousness, as it becomes our experience, as we become aware of it, as it is unfolded to us as part of the omni-activity, this great sense of well-being must arise, since there is nothing going on but God revealing itself in all its glory to itself at all times, and any activity that we see is in fact that activity, that omni-activity. God revealing itself to itself, through itself, as itself, is the only thing going on. And as we become as that becomes part of our experience, this great sense of well-being arises. Nothing can be wrong, nothing can go wrong. It may look wrong. We'll talk next week or the week after, anyway, about the way things appear to be. But if this is the way it is, and that regardless of what I'm experiencing right now, that is the way I am seeing God revealing itself, more of itself as me to me, then it's got to be okay. And that's the basis for Robert Adams' continual expression, all is well, all is exceedingly well, everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Yes, it is. So, that's the idea of omniactive that I wanted to get out here. So we have invisible and eternal, and the four omnis, and it already came but last week, but it's worth mentioning again. The nature of God is spiritual. God is consciousness. God is not material. God is not matter. God is not things. God is not the stuff that we see in space and time. God is pure spirit. It is of the stuff of consciousness and not of the stuff of matter. Matter is our very low level of consciousness, low level of awareness of God. Where God itself is what is here now, fulfilling all of space. I am seeing a material sense of it, which may or may not appear to be harmonious. But let me see if there's anything else. Oh, I've got notes. I remember now. I will say one more thing. God is not only expressed as individual being, but all of God is expressed as each individual being. In your dream at night, I use in Dream On the Starbucks dream. There you are, sitting at a table with some friends in a Starbucks. And what this is saying is that there's not one little component of my subconscious that's looking in my dream like the me, and there's another part of my subconscious, another little item in my subconscious that's looking like the you in the dream, and another little item in my subconscious that's looking like the coffee in the dream. What this is saying is that my subconscious is projecting this entire dream. And there's no part of the dream that isn't a projection of the entire of my entire subconscious, and so every item in the dream is an expression of my entire subconscious dreaming function at the time. So each of us in our reality is an expression of all of God, not a particular little piece of God. Let's sit for a minute and see if to be added? Nope, I think that's plenty for today, and plenty for a week's work, and plenty for a year's work, plenty for a lifetime work. So let's take a break again now, and we'll come back at the top of the hour. It's 3:51 now, so we'll be back at 4 o'clock, 5 or 6 or 7, depending on where you are.
Yeah.